Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Disco Elysium. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you chose to join me today as we talk shit about Kuno's velocity and continue with the post-mortem autopsy thing over here. I think it is always, it needs to be post-mortem, otherwise it isn't an autopsy, right? Either way, we're examining the body over here. It's all very gross and nasty. The lieutenant pays no heed to what Kuno is saying.
In addition, there are bite marks on the face, scalp, and chest, consistent with predation.
I'm gonna write down what Kim says.
Ligature mark.
The lieutenant produces a small folding knife. With the other hand pulling on the belt, he starts cutting into the polyester. The stench is horrid. After a while, it's obvious the material cannot be cut.
The steel wiring.
He concedes, breathless.
There's too much of it. We need to remove the belt so we can get to the ligature mark.
You got just the right tool for that. The chain cutters.
Oh yeah, I'm prepared, and I'm gonna pet the chain cutters.
The hanged man lets out a joyous little bubble of rot from his nose.
Good thing we got these chain cutters, and I'm gonna pull the rubber-gripped cutters out.
Always good to think ahead. Now,
He points to the rope, squeezing the dead man's neck.
we need to cut the belt to see the ligature mark below. Carefully, with as much precision as you can.
See, my pig is gonna fuck his head off.
No, he ain't. Your pig's a boring fuck.
Yes, I'm Kuno's pig, I agree,
You are?
he says with calm certainty.
This pig is Kuno's.
And I'm gonna look for a good spot to cut. I'm in agreement with Kuno, so I get a +1.
The belt is equally tight around the whole circumference of his neck, swelling over the edges like white bread rising from the yeast. The knot is the weak spot. The chain cutters fit in there, steady now, like a flower arranger. 2 cuts and it should come loose.
And I'm gonna cut the belt off with a +3 because interfacing gave instructions. Thank you, interfacing. That was actually a medium success. It's yeah.
After some deliberation, you sink the cutters into the knot tying the belt together. You squeeze the rubber handles together, sweat forming on your brow.
I'm gonna press down.
Snap. The knot is slashed. Another cut and the belt falls apart like a flower bouquet, revealing the dead man's neck and the dark red ligature mark around it.
The rope rises to a point, leaving a gap in the ligature mark. The suspension point is in the back of the neck.
The lieutenant has kneeled closer, running his finger along the dark red groove until there's a gap.
As it ought to. This is where its grip on the curdled meat is gentlest, pulling up.
Hemorrhaging is observed on the skin, above and below the ligature mark. The mark is well pronounced, consistent with a drop from 1 or 1.5 meters.
I'm gonna write it down.
Chest is intact.
He presses down on it.
Normal contour. Abdomen is protuberant. Pelvis intact. Genitalia.
He pulls the men's underpants down.
No! It's gonna happen, see?
I fucking knew it!
Genitalia is male and unremarkable. No evidence of injury.
I'm gonna inspect the genitals.
The dead man's penis is average-sized, congested from the downward collection of blood. The testicles are uneven in length, hanging underneath. The genitalia is greenish. Marbling is present around the crotch. You should touch it.
I'm gonna touch it.
Doesn't feel like anything. Just cold flesh under your finger. Unremarkable and unalive.
My pig's so fucking ill right now.
His voice swells with pride.
Oh, your pig's pretty sick, I gotta say.
I'm gonna write it down and move on. I'm pretty sure there are checks that we're missing here. Others that are appearing that I don't remember having, but yeah, I think there's checks that that appear here. You know, these, you know how it goes. That's why it's so important to invest points if you can. Yeah, let's write it down and move on. And the lieutenant looks relieved.
Back is symmetrical and intact. Upper and lower extremities are intact, but asymmetrical. There are all combat injuries on the right hand, thigh, and hip.
Bullets have bitten little pieces out of him. It must have been excruciating, especially the hip. Before you is a temple of pain that knew little tenderness in life.
In addition, I see smaller, residual scars, too numerous to count, covering about 30% of his skin.
This is the body of a soldier, a mercenary.
Mm-hmm.
He nods.
We have a real museum here. Of battles, wars.
I'm gonna write it down.
Last item. Hands.
He takes the man's right hand in his, inspects it, and then moves on to the other hand. I'm gonna pick the hand up.
The hand is surprisingly heavy to lift, filled with decay liquids. Feels as though it could explode if squeezed harder. You're suddenly repulsed, so much so you feel compelled to drop it.
Hands are clean.
The lieutenant says as 5 cold sausage-like fingers slip from your hand.
No sign of injury from struggling.
Were we expecting any?
I was. Maybe I'm just not seeing them. Honestly, the stench is making it hard for me to think at the moment.
I'm gonna write it down.
Ooh.
He turns to the side to breathe. It's not enough. He buries his face in the sleeve of his jacket. You hear a muffled voice.
That's all for the external. Well done. What next?
I'm gonna try to remove the dead man's boots.
I thought we decided to leave it to processing.
The lieutenant shakes his head.
Let's not turn this into some kind of circus.
Damn it, this is turning into some sort of mega puzzle.
Don't worry. Number 2, internal examination, summary.
Central nervous system.
He says and then concludes abruptly.
I have nothing. Do you have anything on this man's central nervous system?
You don't even have a joke.
Nope. I'm gonna write N/A.
Musculoskeletal. Purge fluid is coming from the mouth.
He gets close to the swollen mouth hole, eyes squinting from the fumes.
Not injury related. Eyes and tongue protuberant. Hyoid bone. Let's see.
With his eyes almost closed, the lieutenant puts his hand on the dead man's throat and begins to massage it, gently. A rotting smell erupts from the mouth. Purge fluid runs down his lips, black and viscous. You hear cracks as the lieutenant moves his sharp fingers inside the flesh, like the creaking of an old house at night.
Yeah, jack that fucker off!
The hyoid bone is fractured.
He says after a while.
The rest of the musculoskeletal system is intact. Unremarkable.
I believe the hyoid bone is the one that usually breaks when people are hanged. Like vast majority of the time it breaks, but not all the time. And it's the one that actually, while being the way it's broken, it presses into your carotid artery, I think, and other parts. And it might kill you outright, but because it can break your neck. But it is a broken neck, but it just cuts the blood flow to your brain and you suffocate because of it. Or I guess you pass out. I'm gonna write it down.
Respiratory system.
Back hunched, as if in prayer, he begins to pry the dead man's jaws open. He stops to exert more force. Both hands are used.
Oral cavity shows no lesions. The victim has received dental implants, possibly after a combat wound. Mouth swollen. Hemorrhaging present in mucosa of the lips and mouth.
I'm gonna look inside the dead man's mouth.
No scream, no sigh of relief rises from the darkness inside. It's humid there. Sickly sweet air, unlike anything living. You feel like you're about to throw up again, straight in that mouth of his. No, you don't. You can keep it in. You can keep anything in.
Thank you, Pain Threshold. Maybe I should invest in you a little bit more. I'm gonna look deeper inside.
You manage to suppress the contractions trying to enter your stomach. All it takes is concentration. Through it, you see nothing but darkness. More meat and darkness.
Hemorrhaging present in mucus.
The lieutenant repeats impatiently. He lets go of the jaws. The mouth snaps shut before you. And I'm gonna write it down.
Hepatobiliary. NA.
He wipes his brow. Why? Don't we have anything?
Are you a hepatobiliary expert?
He looks at the corpse's stomach with a mixture of tiredness and disgust. I don't think so.
Neither am I.
And that's it?
That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna write down N.A.
Same for toxicology and serology. NA.
Both?
Unless you have untapped reservoirs of knowledge there,
The completionist in me wonders if there's something we could do still.
like a toxicology screening.
He looks at the monster.
At this stage, I doubt processing will find anything, even if he was brimming with cocaine. But still, you should add a request.
Brimming with cocaine.
Indeed. I'm gonna write NA and add toxicology requested.
Cardiovascular. The body exhibits heavy lividity. Blood has gathered in the hands, feet, and neck. Hypostasis is visually consistent with the hanging.
I'm gonna write it down.
Gastrointestinal.
He breathes a sigh of approaching relief. This is the last field on the list. He looks around to the ground, the pool of feces there, and then
Digested semi-solid food in stomach. Voila.
he touches the corpse's bloated lower abdomen briefly. And I'm gonna write it down and keep the voila.
What's next on the list?
Description of injuries. Summary.
Let's see.
He tilts his head.
We have bite marks, contusions on the head and chest, and a ligature mark encircling the neck. You'll need 3 fields. Leave a 4th one too.
What about the injuries we have inflicted?
Oh,
He looks incredulous.
so we inflicted them?
Okay, I have inflicted.
Okay, so there's a spin-stabilized munition from a Kiel A990 muzzleloader lodged in his lung.
There's a pause.
I don't think we should mention that. Better not to muddy the waters.
I agree, the waters are muddy enough.
See? These pigs are fucking corrupt.
The boy nods approvingly.
Why don't you fuck him if you love him so much?
Now, injuries.
Number 1, bite marks. He nods.
Head, chest, and scalp bite mark injuries. Predation by birds has caused damage to the body. Odontologist does not need to be consulted.
I'm gonna write it down.
And your opinion, officer?
Beneath the description, there are 2 boxes waiting to be ticked. Oh, non-fatal, postmortem.
Agreed. Next injury?
Contusions.
So, the scalp bleeds from a post-mortem head injury, a stone. The injury does not have the rim of an early inflammatory response. The perpetrator on the scene has confessed to causing it post-mortem.
At maximum velocity, fucko!
Has confessed to causing it at maximum velocity.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down.
Coagulated blood sticks to his scalp and chest, where the countless stones have hit the dead man. Beneath, the description of injury. 2 boxes.
And I'm gonna note the non-fatal, postmortem.
Right. Next.
Number 3, ligature mark, and I'm gonna finish the autopsy. Wait, what's the 4th injury field for?
Nothing. Just in case.
I'm gonna turn the page back.
The corpse lay slouched to the side, oblivious to its surroundings. The field autopsy form describes his state in 3 parts.
Oh, and then I can go back to that one. Let's do the ligature mark.
A dark red abraded ligature mark encircling the neck, with a gap on the nape measuring, let's say, 7 centimeters. The hyoid bone is fractured, the cervical column intact. I see hemorrhaging on the skin, above and below the ligature mark. Depth of the mark, 1 centimeter. No signs of clawing on the neck.
I'm gonna write it down.
Below the note, 2 customary boxes wait to be ticked. The man's head jerks to the side. The ring around his neck is visible.
I'm gonna write non-fatal, postmortem. The lieutenant falls silent, abruptly.
Why do you say that?
He tilts his head. I'm serious, I don't think this was the injury that killed him.
Okay. Why don't you think it was fatal?
Why weren't his hands tied? A big man like this, I would tie his hands when marching him to the gallows.
Honestly, I'm not sure there weren't marks on his wrist. That part got blurry for me. The stench.
He covers his mouth.
But you are right, I was ready to call this. Now I think we should leave it empty, at least for the time being.
And he produces a small black plastic roll from his jacket, a body bag.
Let's wrap this up. I pronounce this field autopsy over.
First, how did it go?
It was
He looks for the right words.
an irregular field autopsy. We did not establish cause of death, which is supposed to be the goal of an autopsy. But, personally, I do not see this as a parameter for success. We also requested a toxicological screening. That was thorough. The results should arrive in a couple of weeks, if we are lucky. I will not hold my breath.
What else?
We were thorough with the list of injuries, too. We described them all in detail. What is there to say? Given the circumstances, it was a professional field autopsy.
Oh yeah, well done, Master Detective. Maybe a drink is in order?
Yeah, perhaps a drink is in order. Later, I mean.
Now, you see, that worries me.
He wipes his forehead.
You will die if you drink. You know that, don't you? You are proving a useful detective. The organization would miss you.
Okay, what now?
I need a copy of that autopsy form. Then I will drive him to Faubourg.
Okay, I'm gonna rip out a copy of the autopsy pages.
For processing.
He looks at the dead man one more time, and then at the slip of red paper in his hand. Then at the corpse again. Right.
You tilt your head, also looking at the corpse.
I'm gonna search the body one more time, thoroughly.
Your arms reach out and your eyes close, as if by their own volition. It's dark all around. You feel cold, slippery flesh, first with your fingertips, then under the palm of your hand.
What is this?
His face, his cheeks, his nose, his fat, swollen lips. Like a spider, your hand crawls over his features. Everything is silent.
I'm gonna put my fingers in his mouth.
The oral cavity is cold and moist. A ball-like tongue attaches itself to the base of the mouth, lolling around like a scallop.
I'm gonna play with it. This feels right.
The tongue moves freely in the cavity. The mucus of the mouth is slippery, delicate to touch. From the soft meat, teeth are budding. Hard pearls of bone in the gums and in the back of the mouth. Can you feel it? You're so close. Rip his jaws open now. Look in.
I'm gonna open my eyes and look.
A vision of black and dark red death, pried open by your naked hands and studded with teeth. Looks like he's laughing. Death fumes rising from the throat, and there, in the back of his mouth, above the bell of the uvula, right in the soft palate, you see a hole, barely visible to the human eye. It is swollen shut, almost vanished. No larger than 0.4 centimeters in radius, the edges appear darkened.
Fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He agrees.
Keep going.
Kuno nods, too. He takes a step closer.
I'm gonna touch it with my finger, gently.
A black trickle of liquid runs into his throat from the wound.
I'm gonna put my finger in.
Your index fits right in there. A tight tunnel of flesh opens up. Tissue damage. Wide enough for 2 fingers. As you push both in, you reach through his mouth, right into his brainstem.
The fuck is happening?
Ah, shit, see?
I'm gonna feel around first.
The basal ganglia feels clumpy. What entered here has torn apart his reptilian complex. The funk soul brother at the back of his head has gone dark. Forever.
Check it out now.
Your fingers slide into the remains of his limbic system. There is no resistance. It's gelatinous. The slug-like structures are damaged too. The tearing extends deep into both hemispheres.
There's a cavity cut right between the hemispheres.
The lieutenant answers with the sound of his pen on paper.
Fucking cavity, see?
Kuno's voice is hushed. I'm gonna push deeper.
Your fingers are all the way in now, reaching toward the inside of his skull. The cavity goes further, but the entry wound isn't wide enough for the rest of your hand to follow. All the muscles in your body harden. Time to enter him.
I'm gonna wriggle in.
Your fingers reach toward his skull. His cerebral cortex feels like jelly. Cold jelly. Strange fluid streams down your wrist as you push deeper until you feel it on the tip of your finger. Sharp, serrated material. The edges cut right into your skin. The pain is barely noticeable under the adrenaline rush.
I feel a solid object right under the skull.
Can you get to it?
He searches his pockets for something. I'm gonna inspect the skull first.
There's a tiny crack, a protrusion in the cranium, right in the back of his head. Your finger must be pointing straight at it, from the inside. The object that is in there stops just short of the skull, in the encephalus, knocking this tiny fracture into the cranium. This is the irregularity you felt before, the one that was too tiny to register consciously.
We have the makings of a very small exit wound here.
The lieutenant leans closer.
Forget about the fucking exit wound, Beano. The pig is wearing him like a fuck puppet.
I have a +1 because a precise spot of exit wound. Let's do it. Fish it out. Can never fail with that one.
You pick the object between your index and middle finger. Feels sharp, like metal. You press your teeth together. Your jaw is clenched. All you need to do is just...
Whisper. I got it.
My pig's fucking got it?
What? What is it?
I'm gonna slowly pull my fingers out.
The inside of the head feels cold and smooth, like a glove. Sweat dripping down your brow. Careful not to lose the prize between your fingers. With a plop, your hand emerges from the mouth, covered in blood up to the wrist. Between your fingers, a small flower, a blossom made of lead.
Fucking beautiful!
A bullet.
The lieutenant puts a small bag marked evidence under it, and I'm gonna drop it in.
The bullet falls in the bag, leaving a smattering of blood on the plastic. He raises the bag under his eyes and says,
A non-calibre. Rifled. Some kind of brittle alloy. Fractured on impact.
Keep it, Lieutenant. Also, I'm sorry for calling you a binoclard.
Don't be silly.
A smile comes across his face.
You've earned it. Consider the binocular episode forgotten.
The lieutenant drops the bag in your bloody hand. It feels light.
We need to add an item to the injury list.
He turns to his notebook.
Injury number 4. Oval entry wound with an abrasion collar. Soft palate, back of mouth. High velocity, temporary cavity in brain tissue, small exit wound on the occiput.
He underlines the injury forcefully.
How does that sound?
Sounds about right.
Opinion, fatal injury.
Goddamn right.
And one last thing.
Click, click goes the pen.
We can now fill in injury number 3. Ligament mark. Opinion non-fatal. Post-mortem. Treatment.
he's proposing the bullet was the real cause of death, and the hanging an attempt to conceal this fact.
The ligament mark, the fractured hyoid bone, it was all treatment.
Yes, and the belt around his neck, the hanging, even dragging him to the yard. All of it was done after this man was already dead.
Agreed.
I have had my doubts since you showed me the tracks. Why did they carry him over? Why not march him, I thought. There was no satisfying explanation. There have been other signs too, small things. We were right not to assign hanging as cause of death, as the perpetrators expected we would. No such luck for them.
Who would do this?
That's for us to find out. But this, it will make finding them just a little easier.
Why would anyone do this?
To hide something. The real killer, the real motivation, what really happened here.
Maybe the bullet holds more answers.
Yes, we should take a closer look at it. I am certain it has more to tell us.
This little thing could reveal much about the weapon that shot it.
I think I need to wash myself.
Oh,
He nods.
you really do. I am glad to hear you say that. Your room in the Whirling in Rags should come with a bathroom. Be sure to make use of it in the evening.
What happens next?
We bag the corpse and carry him to the holding pen of my kinema. I can transport him to processing myself, but I will be gone for the rest of the day.
You'll be gone? What should I do in the meantime?
Work on the case. Tend to personal matters. Try not to do anything too dangerous. An officer needs backup in a neighborhood like this. I'll leave that choice to you. And one more thing.
He looks you in the eye.
Great work, detective.
So I can let him bag him, and the lieutenant takes the body away. You work alone for the rest of the day. Let's not do that right away. Let's look at this. The bullet mushroomed out on impact. It now looks more like a fanciful jacket button than something that could pierce skin, flesh, and bone. RCM 18,823. This number over there. Yeah, it's the jacket itself.
The bullet is safely sealed away in a plastic bag bearing the RCM stamp. Kim has filled out the label on the bag with the item number, case number, and date and location the bullet was found.
What do I do with you, Bullet?
What?
The lieutenant steps closer. I said, what do I do with you, Bullet?
Well, if I was the bullet, which I'm not, I would say find the weapon that shot me.
Good idea.
If we find who owns it, we will have likely found who used it, possibly to kill our victim. In conclusion, the more we know about this bullet of yours, the better.
I'm gonna inspect the bullet closer.
The jacket of the bullet is made of a yellowish metal. It has blossomed out to reveal a dark grey core. The base of the bullet is close to 5 millimeters in diameter. The core is lead. The brass jacket probably didn't cover the entire bullet. Otherwise, the softer metal wouldn't have expanded quite like that.
I'm gonna look at the jacket.
You can just about make out a few striations near the base of the bullet. Little hairlines, linear. It feels standard.
I think it's called striations. Yeah, and the core?
It's quite destroyed. Some of the fragments are still lodged in the wound.
What can you say about the bullet so far?
It's a soft point bullet with a lead core and a brass jacket close to 8 millimeter in diameter.
Okay. Jacketed means it would have been shot from a military-grade breech-loading rifle, and not from a muzzle-loader like those typically found on the streets of Revachol West. Even the RCM uses ordinary unjacketed conical bullets. This is strange. Very strange. I like this, officer. Strange means unique. Unique means incriminating. We need to find the gun that shot it.
Yeah, I'm gonna feel the bullet through the bag.
The squashed bullet has some sharp edges where the jacket has split open. It feels cold, even through the bag.
I'm gonna have the full bullet. Wait. I'm gonna try to determine what type of weapon shot this, but I also have the full bullet specs, and that gives me a +1. And that's because of my hand-eye coordination. Let's put the bullet away for now. I think I can make something about, or make something happen about my hand-eye coordination. That is a lie, unfortunately. So, let's try it.
A rifle, revolutionary period. Your bullet looks to be an old 4.46 millimeter from the surplus left over from the turn of the century. Probably an antique, or a retrofitted antique.
Make?
The 4.46 caliber was widely used with the Belmargrave rifle, a Revacholian manufacturer. The BM dominated the battlefields of the Insulindian theater of the anti-centennial revolution 50 years ago.
Is anyone still making these rifles?
No, but Zeliger, a major firearm manufacturer, ended up with a surplus after the war. So there are still a lot of these old military rifles floating around, usually broken. The quality was appalling.
Who uses Belmargrave rifles these days?
Antiques enthusiasts, guerrilla fighters in distant countries, a few lucky jamrock bangers. You're looking for a well-preserved antique, most likely.
The lieutenant jots something down in his notebook.
What are you thinking? Bullet?
Yeah, I think I know where this came from. I'm gonna dangle the bag thoughtfully.
Okay. And?
The shot probably came from a Belmargrave rifle.
An antique. That makes sense. There can't be many breech-loading rifles floating around in Martinez, or anywhere in Ravachol, really.
Why not?
Sure, there's some arms trafficking, But the laws prohibiting the use of breech loaders we inherited from the monarchy have been effective, from what I've seen. Some new RCM recruits get impatient with their muzzle loaders once they've trained with military-grade weapons, but they realize it's worth it in the end.
I think we probably should have more powerful guns. We're the law.
Imagine if everyone, cops, citizens, had access to firearms that could shoot multiple rounds without pausing to reload. After the first shot, the second, third, and so on come much easier. But back to the investigation.
Indeed. It seems like we're looking for an antiques enthusiast.
Doesn't seem that likely, but we'll check out all possible leads. Next step, finding the gun itself.
And I'm gonna put the bullet away. And I'm gonna say goodbye for right now because we're out of time for the day. So for right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Disco Elysium. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video, but above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.